content and think about it more critically and come up with more effective interpretations and analysis about any content that's coming at you. And we're given content all the time. So basically, where the optic acronym is meant to focus on the details of content, all the details that create the effect, and again, like I said, your interpretation. And these, the letters of the acronym, you can come back to this slide to remember them, but basically, we have an overview of a particular piece of content. I'm going to show you a painting, but say the painting is of a woman alone in a landscape, and that's really what you're seeing. Well, for To Kill a Mockingbird, the overview is a trial of a black man in the Jim Crow South. So that would be the overview. The parts are the woman, the blue sky, some clouds, the landscape, flowers. For the book, it would be the Ewell's poverty, perhaps, Mayella's isolation, Tom Robinson's race. All of those parts create the effect. The title can also create the effect. For instance, that painting could be titled Loneliness, and with loneliness, you um, your interpretation of that painting is very different than if it was called rejuvenation, and that sense of isolation being rejuvenating. So with the title To Kill a Mockingbird, we learn more deeply how tragic it is that we kill this man who does nothing but sing for us. The interrelationships are how we put all those pieces together to understand the mechanisms that really perpetuate injustice in that story. And in the painting, maybe we see how all those pieces create that rejuvenation that maybe the paint author or the painter is trying to convey. And the conclusion is really your analysis when you put all those pieces together, and what that means and your deeper understanding of that. So I'm going to show you a picture that I would like you to write 1 or 2 sentences about each of these letters to create a paragraph, which would ultimately go into the mythology portfolio under the miscellaneous. But it's a way of writing and thinking about something so that you can come up with a decent analytical paragraph if you follow the steps. So this is the painting. And just notice, what you see, the overview of this painting. What are the parts that you notice about this painting? The title is The Landscape with the Fall of Icarus. And I'm losing track of what it is. Oh, and the interconnectedness of all those parts and what that means, and of course the conclusions that you come to. So you can pause this, or you can go along with me and consider. Because what I want you to understand also, especially as you're doing your research, you're going to notice while you read that some of the information might contradict itself. Some of the information might add to what you understand, but also consider the pictures, because the pictures that come with your mythology are also important. They can either validate what you're learning or add questions to what you're learning about your belief system. So do consider the pictures. And what I want you to understand about this particular story is that it is rendered more often than any other of the Greek mythologies. Why? Why is this considered so important, this particular story, as artists throughout time have been reiterating this fall of Icarus? And as you know the story, since you already read it or went through the slideshows, that Icarus got excited about flying. And what an incredible feat that was, to fly, a human flying. That's an amazing feat as you consider these renditions. And The father's pride in his son and hope for his son, and the son's own independence and individuality and excitement for this miracle that has been created, and he falls. And also in modern times, this story continues to be rendered over and over and over again, and we can see as they become more abstract. But what's interesting about this is that we continue to really regard this story as important. Absolutely. So you need to continue to, think about that. What does that mean as we continue to render this story about Icarus's fall and the miracle that occurred, even on people's bodies? They find this story so important. So I have an issue all of a sudden, but you will be patient with me. Oops, not plugged in. Anyway, what I want to do now is to show you a modern poem about Icarus, and it's another way to consider an interpretation of this story. For the most part, we interpret the story as Icarus is failing to adhere to authority, but there might be another story. So, what do we take from this myth? Is it a cautionary tale? Should he listen to authorities? Should we learn to be cautious? Should we not take big risks? Or is the story meant to provoke us into actions, regardless of potential? We learn to not sit idle and we learn to follow our instincts and to live life to the fullest, perhaps. I'm not sure. These stories are meant for us to interpret them and to bring meaning into our own lives. So, with this modern version, I want you to think about this and how it might challenge your immediate response to the story. Icarus. Only the feathers floating around the haft showed that anything more spectacular had occurred than the usual drowning. The police preferred to ignore the confusing aspects of the case, and the witnesses ran off to a gang war. So the report filed and forgotten in the archives read simply drowned. But it was wrong. Icarus had swum away, coming at last to the city where he rented a house and tended the garden. That nice Mr. Hicks, the neighbors called him, never dreaming that a gray, respectable suit concealed arms that had controlled huge wings, nor that those sad, defeated eyes had once compelled the sun and had told them they would have answered with a shocked, uncomprehending stare. No, he could not disturb their neat front yards, yet all his books insisted that this was a horrible mistake. What was he doing, aging in a suburb? Can the genius of a hero fall to the middling stature of the merely talented? And nightly Icarus probes his wound, and daily in his workshop, curtains carefully drawn, constructs small wings and tries to fly to the lighting fixture on the ceiling. Fails every time and hates himself for trying. He had thought himself a hero, had acted heroically, and dreamt of his fall, the tragic fall of the hero. But now rides commuter trains, serves on various committees, and wishes he had drowned. So, what do you think about that particular story and way of interpreting Icarus and his fall? Do we have a mediocre life or do we take risk at all? I don't know. And Bastille, perhaps you've heard this song before, has written a song about Icarus. It's pretty modern, I think about 10 years old. Take a listen, and I will talk to you tomorrow.